Hello, my name is Alexander Isles and welcome to the Great North Museum, Hancock. In this episode we're going to look at some of the finds from the Mesolithic Britons up here in the northeast of England. So you'll remember in my previous episode about the Howick house, how I talked about how they excavated the house and they discovered so much about it. When they excavated the house, they obviously found archaeological finds and they brought them back here to the Great North Museum, because the Great North Museum is associated with Newcastle University. Now when it's associated with Newcastle University, the dig was led by Newcastle University, and so they brought the finds back here so that we can look at them today. Now right here we have some of the finds from the Howick house. To start off with, and this was pointed out to me by someone who sent me a private message, I mentioned seal lions in the Howick house and also in the Cheddar Man video that I did. I actually made a mistake there. I was meaning to say seals. So when I was meaning to say seals, the first one here, the stones right there, they are actually for the preparation of seal skins. So it's likely that the way that they clothe themselves would be that they would actually cover themselves in seal skins and produce clothing from those animal hides. So that would have been number one right there. You've then also got limpets and winkles, which would have been a source of food for them as well. So they would have eaten those right there. And then number three, this is a really interesting one for me. These are hazelnuts. And what they did is they roasted the hazelnut shells, then ground them into flour. And then when they produced them into a flour, that's what they would produce bread with. So that bread would maybe be something similar to what we'd understand as a modern day flatbread, or maybe they would have risen it with yeast. And so when you have that bread right there, that would have been a source of food for the early Mesolithic Britons while they were living on the coastline there. So you can see they've actually got quite a diverse form of diet. We've got wild boars. They're probably eating either dogs, wolves or foxes alongside that. They've got the limpets and the mollusks. They've got bread made from hazelnuts, and alongside that as well they're eating seals too. So quite a range of different foods. Following on from that as well, you can also see a huge range of flints. Now the flints were how they made their tools, and most of these here are something called microlifts. Now when microlifts have been studied, now I don't know about you, but when I look at this, I don't actually see, like tools I could pick up and utilize easily. And I think if you took a Mesolithic Briton, and this is maybe a bit of hyperbole on my part, but you took a Mesolithic Briton and you took them into a hardware store today and you said, oh, identify these tools, that's if you could communicate obviously, they would look at it and just go, I don't recognize anything here. Maybe they would recognize a blade or something like that, and they would recognize its purpose from the way it looked. So something maybe like a Stanley knife blade or something like that, or a scalpel. Maybe they would recognize the purpose of that with the cutting edge. But something like a drill or something like that would be alien to them. In the same way, when I look at these microliths, I can't identify their purpose easily. Now, I reckon a Mesolithic Briton, given those, would know straight away what they were for. They would be able to say, well, this is for this purpose, this is for that purpose. And when I've done my research into the microliths, the interesting thing about them is that these microliths right here, they wouldn't just be a single microlith that would be used. Instead, they sometimes find anywhere from 8 right the way through to nearly 20 would be incorporated to make a tool. So maybe you would put them along the edge of a piece of wood to get a knife blade, or you would put a number of them together to form a spear. Maybe other items would be used for hooks, for harpoons, things like that. So they're multi-tools. You add them together to get a composite tool that will be useful for you as a Mesolithic Briton or a Mesolithic European Western hunter-gatherer or any other Stone Age individual. And that's how they put all together. So some of these are actually blanks. So they would be the flint cores, which you can see numbered number 9 right here. They are cores, so when you'd break parts off those, and then you would get the right microlith that you could add together to make the tools you needed. And so they're all together a part of a wider sense of the tool making industry back then. You add these together, you make a composite tool, and that would be something that you'd use on your daily life. And then when obviously one of the flints breaks off or gets damaged, you can replace it more easily. So you can see it's about use. It's not that these people are like sitting there in the Stone Age huts, as stupid idiots or like grunting and unable to communicate with each other, as often they're depicted in film and TV and stuff like that. They're actually a really complex society where they understand how to make these tools that enable their lives to be a lot more comfortable, a lot easier to actually inhabit the landscape than we would have actually given them credit for. And it's when you actually sit down and you study stuff like microlifts and you realize that every single one of those pieces of flint has a purpose that added together makes a whole, and that someone from Mesolithic Britain would sit down, take those together, put them together as a whole. That really just shows you the intellect of these people when they have such harsh and also short lives compared to our lives today. You know, a normal person today can expect to live, you know, almost 2.5 times the life expectancy of a Mesolithic Briton. And so because of that, in such a short amount of time, you've got to learn how to make these tools, put them together, fit them together so on the, a wooden shaft with maybe stuff like tar or other forms of glue that they would have utilized back then, or even plant matter to tie them on, and then make something that you can then on a daily basis use. Now that I've talked about that for a little bit, we've also got a couple of other finds. So you can just see number 12 there, that's an antler harpoon. So obviously they've been hunting deer, they've managed to sharpen that, they made a harpoon, and then they can go and hunt fish. So again, using something that you've previously hunted, probably taken down with a spear that's maybe utilizing flints and microlifts, and then you're going on to then produce another tool that will help you continue to live and actually have a better life as well. Alongside that, number 6 and 7 in the case right there, they're both for the preparing of skins, just like the seal skin stones just over there from the Howick house. Again, they're to produce clothing for the Mesolithic Britons. Finally, number 10, those are again more microlifts, and you can just see, if I just bring it in here, the absolute fragile nature of these tiny little microlifts, that when I look at them I just go, I just don't know what I'd use those for. But again, going back to the Mesolithic Briton, they have an idea because they're a part of that society who has an in-depth knowledge of what those are for. So I really hope in today's episode I've opened up a little bit of their world, from food preparation and the different foods they're eating along the northeast coast of Britain, with the mollusks, limpets, the hazelnuts, the wild boar, the other animals like that, right the way through to the way they're preparing their clothing with the scraping of the skins to produce their clothing from animals like the animals they've hunted, such as the seals, the wolves, dogs, foxes, and alongside that as well the wild boar, which we have evidence of from Howick House, and then the tool production as well that we've got there as, in the whole of the area, throughout the whole of the world actually at that time during the Stone Age. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and as always, please do like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and if you would like to support me further, I do have a Patreon which you can use to support the channel and help the creation of these videos. Thank you very much as always, and I hope you'll join us for another episode shortly.